We are Group 5, and our LBO case was Kinder Morgan Incorporated. Kinder Morgan, or KMI, founded in 1997 by a group of investors led by Richard Kinder and William Morgan. It began when Richard and William acquired and became the general partner of a small publicly traded pipeline limited partnership. KMI's founders had a vision to build a different type of energy company by utilizing a master limited partnership as a growth vehicle, something that had never been done before. Their vision was highly successful, and KMI became the largest publicly traded pipeline partnership in America based on enterprise value. You may be asking, what is a limited master partnership, and how did they use it? Well, KMI is the general partner for KMP's master limited partnership. They're all under a Kinder Morgan umbrella of sorts. More on this later. So KMI used the stock issuance of the MLP to raise their capital and used it by focusing on growth through acquisitions, purchasing petroleum pipelines, CO2 production fields, transportation pipelines, natural gas lines, and bulk and liquid terminals. They eventually changed growth strategies to expand current projects and focus on new builds. KMI was the general partner of KMP, the Master Limited Partnership. KMI managed pipeline assets for KMP. MLPs have a special and enforceable characteristics, a few specific to the general partners. And since KMI was the general partner of KMP, they were required to supply 2% of the capital and received a minimum of 2% of the cash flow for managing the MLP's assets. It's a form of profit sharing. KMP, on the other hand, was required to distribute 90% of their cash flows quarterly. This type of structure is a true profit sharing, and it encouraged KMI to increase their cash flow to KMP. In order to do that, KMI raised money either through debt or equity to purchase or manage more cash-producing assets. KMI needed to be careful and balance the amount of debt and equity in their capital structure because the new units could dilute the cash flow units available for the MLP profit-sharing structure. KMI, over the past decade leading up to 2005, had been supplying 93.5 cents per unit and receiving 50% of the profits. In 2005, KMI supplied over $3.07 per unit and again received 50% of the profits. In a routine business strategy meeting at KMI on February 16, 2006, the option of going private was first discussed initially by senior management. 2 weeks later, the Kinder Morgan management team met with the investment bankers from Goldman Sachs. The management team and Goldman Sachs dove into potential strategic alternatives that would increase the shareholders' value of KMI by maximizing the value of its general partnership stake in KMP. Options discussed at the meeting included a public restructuring, taking KMI private, or repurchasing shares of KMI using proceeds from the sales of assets. A potential leveraged buyout emerged rather quickly. During a conversation with a Goldman Sachs investment banker, CEO Sharper learned that Goldman Sachs was interested in participating in a potential leveraged buyout. Goldman Sachs then met with Bill Morgan, his son Michael Morgan, a director and top shareholder, Richard Kinder, Michael Morgan, and other top shareholders who held 19% of the company's shares and thus were key voting members in this potential transaction. In addition, Goldman Sachs provided management with a list of potential financial sponsors. Goldman Sachs, AIG, Riverstone Holdings, and several others were invited to participate in the meeting along with senior management members. During the next few weeks, Goldman Sachs also lined up investors and senior management to meet with S&P and Moody's to discuss the potential debt ratings for KMI and KMP following the transaction. Goldman Sachs came to the conclusion that they could preserve the desired credit rating for KMI and KMP. It was not until just over 2 months after all these talks had begun that KMI decided to inform its board members of the possibility of this transaction.
For this slide, I will talk about Kinder Morgan stock price movement during this session. In the May, their stock price was $84.41 per share, and they reject the $100 per share offer. After 3 months, their stock price go up to the $104.23 per share, and they accept the $107.5 per share offer. Next, I will talk about some commentary in the market. Like the Wall Street Journal said that this deal is a moderate risk and modest potential return because it is so expensive and require such a large equity investment. And you also have some potential pitfall. Like the main one is whether the debt market will remain robust enough to allow the financial to be complete. Next, the rating agents. In Moody's 2017 report said that they affirmed Kinder Morgan to Baa3 scenario on security rating and primary 3 commercial paper rating. The Baa3 rating refers to significant scale, high quality assets, stable fees-based demand pool cash flow, and currently strong dividend coverage. In their report, he said that the stable outlook reflects Kinder Morgan's stable cash flow and leverage, and they expect they will improve toward 5.3 times in 2018. And for competitor, I pick up 3 major competitors with Kinder Morgan. The first one is Magellan Ministry Partner. The second is William Companies. The third is Enterprise Products Partner. The financial data shows that Kinder Morgan have its own special competition in the market.
In the detail of proposal, there were 13.4 million common shares outstanding, times the offering price of the $107.5. The total common stock value is about $14.4 billion. Also, investors paid about $18.5 million for outstanding option. The maximum value is around $14.5 billion. For financing of the merge, $5.1 billion is the new equity from investor. $2.8 million used to roll over older investor. $7.6 billion is the new debt financing, and $6.9 billion is the existing indebtedness remained outstanding. The total value is $22.4 billion. The next slide we will show some key financial ratio and the forward forecast.
Here is a legal issue between shareholder and the PE investor. Small shareholder will pay additional $200,000 for compensation. On February 2011, Kinder Morgan issued IPO and raised $20.2 billion. It was the largest equity-backed IPO in U.S. history. Initial IPO price range was $26 to $29 per share, but it was increased to $30 per share due to demand. Shares were offered by private equity holders, and with 707 million shares outstanding, priced at $30, Kinder Morgan conducted $20.2 billion back IPO compared to $14.5 billion which invested by private equity investor in 2006. Private equity investor gained 46.2% return, and history chart for each individual private equity holder's return and the shares holding after IPO. The current performance, the stock price was highly volatile. For the first 4 years, high dividend yield asked by private equity investors stimulated the stock price fall to $44.71, and the highest market capitalization was $96.5 billion. Most of the PE investors cash out during that period, and the management, they still holding their shares, but they decide to cut off the dividend yield, and the current stock price is $17.3 now. Since most of private equity institution player left, the giant asset investment company come in and take the majority of the outstanding shares. Only Goldman Sachs remain 1.2% of shares. This is a great example of how PE investors benefit from buy out a company and cash out after earned some capital and dividends.